Hello everyone, this is Running on Empty. I got one of the legs of the table right here, I'm trying to maneuver. Food review! Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, and everyone watching. This is Running on Empty food review. I'm still trying to maneuver myself into position. Usually I'm seated a little bit more toward the right, but this time I'm here. And you may ask yourself why. Now, I don't always do Krispy Kreme reviews. You check the last video that I did on the channel, and it wasn't a Krispy Kreme review. And you check the video before that, and that wasn't a Krispy Kreme review either. And even the one before that wasn't. So I am not 100% Krispy Kreme review based. Now that fact has been established, you're going to obviously inquire, well, why are you out? Why are you reviewing Krispy Kreme? Well, it's not like this video has a title or anything, but it's because Krispy Kreme has a new release. It's limited time, and I was actually surprised myself because a lot of people requested this. Probably the most amount of comments and emails and posts and all of the above to request for an item to be reviewed recently. They said, try the Blueberry Glazed Doughnut from Krispy Kreme. Thought to myself, yeah, why not? What the heck? I got so many requests for it. Gonna give it a shot. So I decorated everything to be very, very well themed for the blueberryness that is to ensue. We got the blue tapestry, kind of left over from Cinco de Mayo. We have, of course, our blue water chalice. I'm going with the green suit. And we have an all-star cast that came out of retirement here. We got one of the wholesome ducks of good luck, who is actually a connoisseur on blueberries and wants to be a guest reviewer. And then this wanted to kind of make an appearance too, so, why not? This is the Blueberry Goblin. There he is. But he doesn't really know anything about blueberries, so I'm just gonna stay put there. Alright, so what are these? These are just glazed donuts but they have a blueberry glaze on them. So I would imagine them to be blue, or maybe like a purplish blue, sweet and sugary, and have that nice, just doughiness that the Krispy Kreme donuts have to offer. Limited time, as I said, only available until May 27th. So let's unravel these and let's take a look. No. There they are. They're not as blue as I kind of hoped them to be, at least. They definitely are the blueberry ones. Can smell a little bit of blueberry from them, but you take a look. I mean, this more or less is just a, translucent, light purple color rather than a blue. That's all right. Looks all right. We can't be too biased just based on that, but there I am with the box of the blueberry donuts. I was hoping for them to be a little bit more, I guess, on the bluer side. Originally, I thought that these were kind of not just going to have a glaze to them, but they were going to have a full-on, they were going to actually have a blueberry batter that they're composed of. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. This is what we got, and very simple concept. I think we already know what this is 10 times over by now. So I'm going to try it out, and I'll let you all know what it tastes like. So these are the new Blueberry Glazed Donuts from Krispy Kreme going in. I think it should be mentioned, since this is very relevant to the review and subject matter therein. The blue duck over there has the ability to absorb particles and flavors and all of that just through kind of not quite telepathically, but he's able to kind of pull them from a distance and consume them. So he doesn't necessarily need to leap on and actually physically eat the donuts, but rather he has powers that are kind of able to transcend the boundaries of physics, really, as we know, and he's able to eat them that way. For those of you who are wondering. Alright, I'll take one more bite. And now for those of you really wondering what the heck I'm doing, I'm looking for a napkin, which I seem to have forgotten, despite spending so much time setting all this up. I forgot the most basic of things, but I see a napkin right over there, so excuse me for a second. Let me grab one. Okay. Well, what does it taste like? I'm going to be honest with you. I was a little bit disappointed when I mean, you have to understand this when it comes down to this donut, alright? What the heck, I'm going to do this. The old... You have to understand this when it comes down to these donuts. I reviewed these, again, based upon the amount of requests that I was given. All the people who were saying, review these from Krispy Kreme. Give them a try. This is going to be incredible, and so on and so forth. And I just garnered this image before obtaining them, that these were going to be among the likes of the infamous green donuts. That these were going to not only be blueberry flavored, that they were also going to be composed of a batter containing blueberry, and that they were going to be blue in color. So, just by the impression that they gave me, I felt like I was a little misled. And, that's no fault but my own. But I was just expecting them to be just a little more, a little more flavorful and just out there in every regard. They're not the most colorful donuts. They're almost not even truly distinguishable from their standard glazed donuts. It was a little disappointing. The aesthetic, the visual appearance of the food is very important, and I think they could have done a little better of a job here. Now, secondly, when it comes down to the donut itself, these donuts, as you I'm sure know if you've had Krispy Kreme before, these are their standard glazed donuts. They just have a different glaze on them. So the consistency, the texture of the donut itself does not vary. It's going to give you a very soft, chewy, and even at times doughy donut that oftentimes will absorb a lot of the flavor. That's why when it just goes with the classic glaze, it's a sugar base. You're just tasting that sweetness that mixes in with the oil and the dough from the donut, and it works. When I try and add other flavors, it either needs to be really potent so that you really get a real mouthful and it really makes that flavor apparent, or it may not fully be there. And unfortunately with these donuts, because it's not just pure blueberry syrup, it's like a blueberry flavored, sugary glaze that they put on these donuts, the blueberry flavor, while it is there, it just isn't as potent and as strong as I would have liked for it to be. I thought it would have been cool to just, bite this donut and it would be, sweet and sugary, but it would have this real explosion of flavor that the blueberry, glaze, I would presume, would unlock. But instead I bit in and it was a little sweet. There was a little bit of that blueberry flavor there. And then as I started chewing, it kind of got lost in the donut. And that was a little disappointing. I think that they could just be more flavorful. I was just expecting a little bit more in terms of the blueberry flavor than what I really got, and I'm just a little disappointed by that. But otherwise, they're just very basic. As I said, this box of 6 of them I procured for about $5. Fair price, but again, for all the hype, I think that they could be a bit more flavorful, and just the visual presentation too, just as I said, for all that it was being marketed as, a little bit disappointing. Still tasty, still flavorful to a degree, but just not to that level that I was kind of hoping for. Anything you'd like to add? Mm-hmm. Say it to the camera. Mm-hmm. I disagree with you on that, but thank you for respectfully voicing your opinion. You know, everyone's entitled to that, so thank you there. On a final note, well, first and foremost, let me just give a numerical scale. I'm sorry, you threw me off. Out of 10, what am I going to be rating these Blueberry Glazed Donuts from Krispy Kreme? Out of 10, these are going to be getting a 6.2 out of 10. That's a 6.2 out of 10. Again, simply because I think that they could have been to a higher standard, that they just weren't, and that's just a little disappointing. Alright, with that out of the way, this review concluded. On a final note, coming up tomorrow is the newest VORW show. It's a little bit of a podcast radio show I do each week. I recommend you check it out. It's just an hour of some good music, some interesting talk, and again, you just got to remember, if I didn't get the word out there, no one would know it exists. Tune in if you're interested. Thank you for watching this review for Krispy Kreme's Blueberry Glazed Donuts with our guest stars, the Blueberry Goblin, and of course, the ever so ebullient, wholesome duck of good luck. Thank you for watching. Take care. I'm your host, the Report of the Week.